Unless you've been living under a rock or worse, not logged into LinkedIn in the past few months, you already know who today's guest is. But just in case your feed missed a beat, let me catch you up. Michele Nieberding. Yes, that's Michelle with one L and Nieberding with a silent G. That definitely doesn't apply to her personality. She is one of the most vibrant voices in the Martech world right now. As a product manager, she's been breaking down complex concepts with flair, bringing AI into the product marketing mix like it's just another Tuesday, and somehow still finding time to make us all laugh while doing it. She's been making a lot of waves over at MetaRouter, depends where you come from. But if you blinked, you might have missed her latest update. She just announced a brand new gig over at Treasure Data. That's right. Michelle's taking her talents to the biggest of big leagues. Oh, and if you've ever wondered how many times AI can be mentioned in a single conversation, don't worry, she's got a drinking game for that. So if you're not already following her, pause, open LinkedIn, search Michele Nieberding, 1L, remember, and get ready to have your Martech feed seriously upgraded. All right, headphones on, let's get into it. Hey, Michelle, welcome to the Couch Confidentials. I believe it's number 18. It's been a long time coming. We scheduled a few, we canceled a few. Finally, you're here today. And thank God, because like I said in the opening, a vibrant voice in this podcast is exactly what we need in these kind of, I don't want to say darkened times, but things are definitely happening in this space. And I'd just love to get your opinion on that.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for having me. Like you said, I mean, truly every day there's a new something popping up. So it's been a fun roller coaster ride, but with that comes ups and downs. And so here we are.
Your merger and acquisition bingo card is quite funny, I have to say. It's filling up pretty nicely now.
Shockingly, I'm missing a couple. I'm a little disappointed in myself. There's a couple missing, but I had someone from Zeta reach out and say, we had an acquisition last October. You should count that. I'm like, if I count Zeta, we're just high touch away from bingo. And I swear we will, they have some good funding. Like if we hit bingo this year, we're going to have a celebration.
we still have a way to go. We're 1/3 in. Yeah. I mean, unless you don't want to say, but who's your biggest prediction?
I mean, High Touch has the funding. I think they're doubling down on AI now. I think they'll build a lot of that in-house.
Yeah.
But then my question is, what CDP will likely acquire someone in AI to kind of maybe catch up? I don't know. I could tell you who I think will win in that space, like totally side, like not a CDP, just totally different side company, I think is Aampe, AAMPE.
Yeah.
I think Paul and his team over there will literally shake the industry. Once people understand kind of what is possible with agents, I think that company will be the next unicorn. So there's my prediction.
I mean, talking about agents, we've seen Salesforce do this. Wow, we're really jumping into the hard stuff immediately.
Good morning, let's do it.
And we've missed a few shots, by the way, for your drinking game. I think, are we like 3 behind now? Let me take a big sip here.
But who's counting?
Yeah, but who's counting, right? No, it's just pure tonic. I left the gin out today. But yeah, I mean, agents. I've been dabbling with agents for the last few weeks now, and I mean, this MCP word is really becoming a hype, which is just I get so confused with all these terms. And I think MCP is a lot of agent to agent communication and these large language models and the reasoning behind it, trying to make decisions to move things forward. I think High Touch has definitely made a way into that with AI decisioning. Mm-hmm. Sorry, there we go.
Yeah,
Nobody's counting here. But I mean, and now Telium last week, or was it this week actually? It was on Monday. They announced the integration of MCP, or that you can integrate with MCP servers within their solution. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that I know everything around MCP. I follow a few people on YouTube now to try to understand what the differences are between MCP hosts, MCP servers, when you need an MCP, when you need an API. There's just so much on the table right now that it gets a little bit confusing. But I mean, you're in product marketing. Is this something that you would be selling to, or biting your teeth into to be able to sell? What's your view on everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to. I think everyone's talking about it and trying to figure it out. Like let's take agents, for example. Almost all of the content coming out is around agents and agentic and contextual learning. And I think there's so much to be learned. Again, it's not just, I don't think it's like the tech is just changing, the mindset is. So like, I don't know, think about when you're in high school and your teacher's like, oh, you need to know mental math and your multiplication tables, whatever, because you'll never have a calculator in your pocket, because that just wasn't, that wasn't a reality. The thought wasn't there. And look how far we've come. And so I feel like we're at that tipping point. So from a product marketing perspective, I mean, if you're not talking about it, you're not selling it, it's not either, again, being integrated into your platform in a very purposeful way, or you're not looking at acquisition, right? I do think there's going to be a problem there, because not only is that like where people are headed, but the education is still very much needed. I think Salesforce much has put out like the 4-step roadmap to surviving in the agentic era, right? Like what does that really mean? And so many other CDPs are doing the same, like you said, Telium, and I think Imperity might have done something as well. But I mean, you have to, but I think where people will win is two things. One, again, being really clear on the use cases. I have an agent to do this that results in these kinds of results for customers. I think that, as with any true thing in product marketing, will be important. But then how? So again, even like the CDP world, everyone became a CDP, and it's like, how do you do it? But what are your key use cases? And it's like been this kind of hodgepodge, which for whatever reason, I'm like, I'm going to jump into the shark pit, right, of CDPs. It's fine. I think agents will be the same. I think we'll have to get really clear on, is it, reinforcement learning? Is it LLMs? Like, how are agents actually learning from each other? How are these decisions actually being made? Because I also think there's so many instances where we say AI, but in like the Martech world, it's kind of like an AI wrapper on really what at its core is like a trigger, like another,
absolutely.
Something else happens. So I don't know.
No, but it's so funny because I think there's a few memes going around about AI when, when you really unpack all these AI apps, it's all just OpenAI or it's Anthropic, or it's all just a wrapper around something. And I think when you saw the initial flow of this AI, I don't want to say dredge. That's a negative word, but there was just so much of it that a lot of it was just referring to old-fashioned machine learning. How do we? I mean, I've even used OpenAPI to calculate propensity scores based on a data set for a real estate project that I was doing in the weekend, because I get bored. But it's able to do so much. But I think one of the things that have really been, and believe me, I get giddy about this kind of stuff. I'll spend hours trying to build something, see if I can hook it up into some of these CDPs. I've been dabbling with N, which allows me really to draw out all these flows and really visualize what I'm trying to do. But who's going to monitor all of this? Who's going to make sure that the instructions you give one AI agent, MCP, whatever you want to call it these days, and they talk to another one, who's sitting in the middle making sure that they're doing what you really need to be done, and they're not going to end up ruining your brand or breaking that trust with your clients? That's one of the biggest concerns that I have.
Yeah. So, crystal ball is hard on this one, because I think it could go two ways, right? So if you think of like, we'll call it kind of, there's AI governance, like, so what's the data? And there's AI, I would say, monitoring, like what are the agents actually doing? And, historically, again, in Martech, we've seen companies build huge companies around it. You think of, the OneTrusts of the world, or like the Datadogs for observability, right? Like there are, I think, potential paths for that. My concern and my thought is the rate at which AI is not only using some of that data, but how the agents are learning, right? Like how the agents are talking to each other. Again, it's such a monumental shift in how we think about technology. It isn't like, again, someone clicks or abandons their cart, all these things that we've seen for so long. So in that world where agents are, again, learning from each other, with so much, contextual data and things like that, I think these good AI platforms are going to have that built in. Again, like, what does that monitoring look like? What are the decisions being made? What are the results being made? I think historically that's kind of been like A/B testing, which is like almost scary that we're still talking about it. Because I remember, like, what was it, a decade ago? It was like, wow, A/B test, first name personalization, mind blown. Campaigns are so much better.
And the guys over No, and the guys over at Optimizely getting a lot of attention because they helped out Obama with his campaign. Yeah, A/B testing was all over the place.
I mean, I just think again, we're at that huge jump forward, but who's going to really monitor, make sure that's the right data? I think the good AI companies will have that built in, because they can't risk it otherwise,
Do you remember Gemini in the early days telling people to go hang themselves? I mean, can
Oh,
you imagine? Can you imagine getting a reply like that in a chatbot with your, with your favorite company that you love buying from? You want to
mostly
return an
I'm
order? Go
like,
hang yourself. Yeah.
I mean, we all have those thoughts. No, kidding. But it is, no, but so it's, I think something that amuses me is the AI gone wrong. And I think, again, we are so, now because of with the adoption of Chat GPT, a lot of us synonymize, God, see, I need coffee. We think AI equals generative AI. And I think because we use Chat GPT every day, we're, making all these fun, what was the LinkedIn trend? Everyone's showing what ChatGPT thinks they look like and their action figures and like stuff like that. And that's cool. But there's so much more we can be doing. So,
No, definitely, and it takes a lot of time to explore this. I mean, even talk to my physiotherapist every Friday. I talk to him about the capabilities of AI, and we're just trading out ideas. And it's funny to hear his perspective as a kind of a non-technical user, and how impressed he is with the progress that it's making from. I'm going to consumer point of view, somebody who just uses the desktop. But now that I've been working more with the API, the developer environment of these AI models and working with memories, working with adding extra tooling in, it's like, wow, this goes so beyond anything that I've ever expected. And especially with combination with CDPs, because CDPs is a form of memory. You can literally put store a copy of the user's memory or everything you know about your customer. It's a customer data platform, but that offers so much power for when you want to further enhance what you're doing with through chats, through recommendations, through dynamic content. Out of all the three kind of merger and acquisitions that we've seen since December, the content stack with Lytics, that's just the one that blew me away because I just see that happening so quickly.
yeah.
And I spoke to the guys and I said, hey, what if if someone's education level hasn't gone higher than high school? Is there a way that you could adjust the content for this individual to at a high school level? And they said, yeah, we're able to do that. And I was like, there you go. It's you're going to be talking to a person on a very personal level. And I think that's definitely where we're headed.
Hyper personalization's like finally here. I'm like, how long did it take? Well, it's almost what I want marketers or even like tech teams to do is almost make like an AI mood board. Like if in their wildest dreams in their perfect world, what would they that I mean that's a great example, right? Like what would they want to do if they could? I think one of the ones I liked from the team at Aampe was like kind of value driven messaging. So if I'm late night ordering food on Grubhub or Uber Eats or whatever, do I care more about convenience? Is it speed? Is it price? So my husband might just really like late night Chinese food, but I might care about what comes the quickest and like being able to adapt so quickly to like what I value.
True, but yeah. But
I don't
I
know.
think inference is dangerous though to some extent, because especially if the customer is not giving you the information, to what extent but that comes back to that whole trust thing.
Yeah.
How far are you going to take this? But it's no, Aampe, I'll need to make a note about that. I'm going to invite him onto the show as well, because I'm really curious to hear about what they are doing there. But like you said, there is like that mood board. It was just, I have to say, it was relatively easy to build out your own agent that looks back. So let's say you have the CDP, you store messages in there, you store feedback or survey scores or anything like that. And I was able to build this solution pretty quick. I mean, I didn't check the accuracy. It was just kind of a ad hoc thing, but it was just able to quickly say, hey, should we push a promotion to this user or not based on their last tone or sentiment in the communication that they had with us. And what I told the agents, say, if it's very negative, they complained about shipping or they complained about, do not push new ad campaigns to them. And it was the responses that came out of it that were pretty accurate. I mean, can you imagine the power of linking that to your campaign triggers? That's going to be phenomenal.
I mean, Breeze and OfferFit, we'll talk more about other acquisitions that are just really interesting. I think I feel like they were pretty integrated already. So that seemed more of a natural fit than Lytics and content stack. I was like, oh, this is all right. Let's go. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. But hey, bigger news in the market, your move to treasure data.
Yes, I'm super excited. It was really pointed but really cool transition. I feel like with MetaRouter, I worked with so many CDPs, and again, it's like that Oreo layer for me. I've worked on kind of both
Yeah,
sides of the coin now
that was
to
a great
dig into.
metaphor.
My mind works in mysterious ways. My husband's like, "What are you thinking about?" I'm like, "Always food," but that's another story.
He was probably eating an Oreo at the time, right?
I was like, "You know
Yeah.
what that looks like?" He's like, "Why do you obviously work in tech?" I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah. Why are you giving me that look? Why are you giving me this my Oreo cookie? Yeah.
I thought this was funny. Someone was like, "Well, what happens when like the Oreo, disintegrates in the milk?" I'm like, "It's fully integrated. That's what it is. that's what you want anyway." But it's just really exciting to jump in because I think it's such a pivotal moment. I mean, we're seeing acquisitions, we're seeing rebrands, we're seeing AI integration, we're seeing like all these cool things within the CDP that I just had to be a part of it. And so competitive, lots of noise, lots of excitement, but I'm excited.
But how long have you been working in the Martech space, though? I mean, I know you talk a lot about the product marketing manager category or the job category, but
Yeah.
you've specifically focused on Martech. How long have you been working in Martech?
Yeah, I guess we're coming up on, I guess going on 6 years now.
Where did you come before that? Where did
So
you
I
come
was at
from?
Cvent, so event management technology, still
Okay.
B2B technology, and then a bunch of agencies before that. So, running campaigns and things. So working in marketing, but not necessarily Martech.
Yeah.
And then event technology was like the other big world, and event technology is another interest. I mean, it's kind of sort of Martech, like Cvent, does registration and went into video events, virtual events and hybrid and all that stuff, which was really cool tech to see. I was
Actual
there.
people with real world people?
I know, right? Wow. Not the AI generated people sitting in the crowd. I mean, well, it was
Exactly.
during COVID. I mean, that the cool thing about being part of Cvent, like the combination of in-person events and like hospitality, like running events in venues in the middle of COVID was wild to be there because it's like we had to pivot so quickly into this idea of virtual and then eventually hybrid events. And from a tech perspective, it was like how much could you do and how quickly, because I mean the business was kind of at the worst intersection
Yeah.
of industries being hit, obviously. So from a rallying behind such a big shift and what people can come up with without AI, doing coding, whatever, was like really cool to see. So yeah, Martech, probably
But
about 6 years now. The
and
tech
well, was that MetaRouter you started with, or was it another company before MetaRouter? I know I
iterable.
could look at your LinkedIn.
No,
Oh, Iterable.
no,
That's right. Yeah.
iterable. Yeah, which was really, really cool to see. Because I think almost working backwards from what the outputs can be. And then I helped launch like the AI suite there. So that was like, I call it a sprinkle of AI because that was like the start of what's possible, predictive audiences, things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, I get the outputs. I'm a marketer. Like I get that. Now give me the like dark and dirty secrets of the data. Like how is it collected? How is it cleaned? How is it integrated? Like give me that kind of meat and potatoes of it. And now what does that bridge look like? So if I know what some outputs are possible, I know what that collection kind of process looks like in compliance and things like that. How do I bring it into CDP world? And I think it's so interesting off the bat that and you probably know this better than anyone, is that everyone has a different definition, and CDP is going to save us, but now we have 2, 3, 4, 5 CDPs, and now what do we do? It's like the wild
Exactly.
Wild West. So
And then you have CDIs as well, because after Iterable, you moved on to MetaRouter, who identifies as a customer data infrastructure, which is also quite an interesting approach and quite unique for them. I mean, how did that even? I'm just trying to paint a picture for myself as
yeah,
someone who maybe used a marketing technology product at one point,
sure.
started to work for one at the next moment, and then went full on with MetaRouter. I mean, we'll get to treasure data here, but
Yeah.
how did your vision of the market grow? I think you were on the way to its peak. Well, it was still growing. I mean, but it was pretty smooth sailing at that moment. How did your time at MetaRouter change your vision further around Martech?
Yeah. So I think the cool thing about Iterable was like people get excited because they see like the results, right? They can see the campaign numbers and the analytics.
It's
So like,
tangible, yeah.
yeah, it's very tangible. And I think it's like renovating a house, right? Like you love to see that new renovated bathroom and the new sinks and whatever, right? So to go into like the literal pipes, so what is behind the wall that's, routing the water into your beautiful new bathroom was a very interesting transition because again, it's a different focus. It's a lot of like IT engineering, compliance, potentially teams. And to understand how not only how this data is collected, but like what can happen in transit before it gets to any other tools. Everyone knows about the data warehouses and even CDP, but there's so much almost behind. It's like Wizard of Oz, right? It's like what happens behind the curtains before you see that kind of come to life was such a really cool pivot to me. Like I'm very much a kind of a nerd at heart. Like I need to see what is going on, behind the scenes, and also like to see really big problems being solved was really cool too. So like we were tracking in the news every, horrible example, like United Healthcare, like things where there's huge data breaches and PII and like medical records or whatever. I mean, even Paramount had a big breach and things like that. So to know that there's ways that this stuff can be prevented was just very cool to be a part of. And when I started, MetaRouter really didn't have marketing. So I got to build, everything from the ground up. And for a control freak like me, that's the dream. So I had a lot of fun with it, even though it's very technical. And even though there's like, learning CAPI and APIs and what STKs and like, what's the difference? And like, what difference does that make?
And how do you translate that into marketing messaging?
My favorite campaign I did there was a CDP's best friend, and obviously that worked out. So it's
definitely that was one of the memorable one. But how did you tackle that? Because some of the work that I'm doing right now, it really exposes, and AI is just making it worse, is that a lot of organizations are just not ready for this complex level of technology. But as you pointed out, you needed to see it. As you said, it's very abstract. If you think about a customer data infrastructure, what does it do? There are no charts. There's no dashboard. No, you could probably get some real-time notifications set up. But what is it telling you? It's so difficult to fully understand what the power is. How did you, when you got into the role at MetaRouter and grow in that Martech world and the CDI and the CDP, what helped you better understand the complexity? And how did you, and I think that's one of the key questions I really want to ask, how did you translate that into the marketing that really helped customers? And I'm not talking about the campaigns, but when you maybe spoke to people, because it's so difficult to explain sometimes what a CDP does.
Yeah. So I think that was a very, it was like a culture shock a little bit. Cause I'm like, in my head, I'm like, of course this is important. Like the more I got into it, I'm like, how does everyone not know about this? And like you said, CDI wasn't a broadly accepted category. And, if you've heard me on anything else, like I'm not a huge believer in category creation itself. And for so many different reasons, I won't go into that right now, but it was tricky. And so for me, it was almost like an identity crisis. Like we went from, okay, the CDI is too big. It's not widely accepted. No one gets it yet. So let's focus on our core use case. Let's go into server-side tag management. And so we went all in on server side because that makes sense, right? There's other clear competitors and people understand where it fits in and why, and generally why it's important, things like that. But that was such a niche use case for the broadness and impact of a CDI, right? There's free server-side tag managers. Why would someone pay for a MetaRouter foundation when they think that, it makes a lot of sense, right? And so then we moved into data governance. But a very different slice of the data governance puzzle, which was really more around like enforcement, when again, we're partnering with people like OneTrust, we're partnering with the leaders and making them better, but no one's going to buy MetaRouter as a compliance or governance platform, right?
Yep.
So that's when we kind of pivoted to, okay, how can we talk about more of like the ecosystem? Like where are we helping fuel this ecosystem into a place where you can see real results? Because no one cares about the pipes that are transporting the water. They care about the quality of the water, right? Like you don't want to shower with dirty water or whatever. And that's where we really leaned into CDPs because of the data that we were collecting. You can see when it gets to a CDP or even a warehouse, like stats, like what are the match rates? What can you reach your anonymous users? Or if not, how much bigger can you make your like addressable pool of people that you're talking to? And there were key stats that like you could pull in to say, here's how we make a CDP better because of the data we're bringing in.
Yep.
And I think that was kind of the transition of, real results. But then there's also the other side of like saving money because you're not the next compliance breach in the news, right? And I think that was a big story too. Like we talked to a lot of CDOs, CIOs, CTOs about that story of how we're moving now compliance, and I'll say shift left or, moving it upstream. Yep. Chad Sanderson, if you haven't talked to him, another amazing person who has a gorgeous view of shifting left in like data contracts and clean rooms. But this idea of like, as soon as you collect data, you need to like do stuff with it. You don't need to wait till it sits somewhere that is already exposed to risk. You need to do this in flight, in transit, shift left. So move it closer to the point of collection. Even that concept, I think originally was hard for people to understand because they're like, oh, how do you do this?
Oh, it is.
Do this. Like, that's a whole nother concept.
Even for there's another company out there that has always lingered in the back of my mind just because of I want to say the simplicity of their solution, but also the importance of their solution. It's called AVO, AVO.
Okay.
And they actually, what they do is they set, how should I explain this? It's not a form of Google, or tag management or data collection, but they do sit at the point where your data is collected and they monitor the quality of that.
Okay.
But
yes.
The way you collect the data is defined in models that you can build out with your team in the shape of, with pull and pull requests, like a GitHub repo or a Git repo. So any changes you make will need to be merged back into the full tracking plan or the full model, and then be approved for deployment. So there's a very strict control, and they also talk about data mesh and data contracts there, and making sure that the responsibility of the data that you're collecting is assigned accordingly, not centralized, but assigned accordingly. And I think that is so wonderful. The closer you can get that quality question answered to the source, you have less to worry about downstream. So it's definitely something like that I see at the same level of with MetaRouter. They just do it really at the point of collection. So it's a client side script that does that, and it's pretty amazing. But yeah, like you said, being able to work with CDPs and actually there, or through the use of actually showing the data, the results of the data collection within data warehouses or in dashboards, that really helps visualize the solution that you're building. And one of the techniques I kind of always like to apply is that when we do these kind of projects, it's always a cross-functional team. You have developers, you have data scientists, but at some point when everything's slowly up and running, you also need to involve the people who are responsible for setting up that data collection to see, hey, this is the result of the work that you've been doing. Show them in like the dashboards, show them the results coming in a live debugger or whatever. And it just really helps to remove that abstract layer of the work that we do. It's pretty nice. But now it's time for treasure data. How did that happen? Wow. I mean, I like I said, I sat down with Kazuki quite a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And his vision blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just with the simplicity, the no nonsense, and just, I think at one point he even said, there's so much more you can do with customer data. Why are you only restricting it to marketing?
Yes.
So it's, but please tell me who contacted who, and I mean, what are you going to share with us in the next kind of year around treasure data? What are you excited about?
Yeah. So, I mean, the Martech world is small.
Yeah.
So Karen Wood over there is the VP of product marketing. And of course, everyone goes to the same events and, you get talking. And so I met her at some events and I just fell in love with her as a leader in the way she thought about product marketing. And again, just her like genuine, authentic excitement around the technology was just really awesome. So met her a couple of times. And then I went to CDP World because MetaRouter sponsored their CDP World in Vegas in October. And they, of course, at that event showed like their product vision and where they're going. And Kaz got on stage and really like the passion in his voice. And I saw this from my little MetaRouter booth and I'm like, I have to be a part of this. So after CDP World, I reached out to Karen. I was like, if you have anything that opens up, let me know. It feels like something I need to be a part of, especially having worked with so many other CDPs and kind of understanding where are they placing their bets, or how do they think about the future and things like that. And I think what Treasure Data really got me excited about was that vision. Now they have a new CPO, Rafa, who really has solidified that in terms of like roadmap and vision and like where we want to go. And I think, it's one of those things of like FOMO, right? Like you just have to be a part of it. And I think they're going to do a good job kind of leading this, like, I'll call it package, but it's kind of a hybrid CDP solution in a world of composability. I think there was some really goodness there that it depends, not always the case for every company, but I think there's some really.
Hey, people with long toes just need to curl them back in.
I mean, it is.
It is what it is. Go on.
Come to me for hot takes, I'll be here. But I think from a product marketing perspective, this idea of composable and why it's important, and composability is the future. I think I literally had someone yesterday tell me, there's no other way forward other than composability, and I'm like, let's think about that.
Geez.
Let's think about it, right? I mean, for some maybe, but
I've never been black or white. I've always kind of been in the middle, gray. There's a reason or a solution for everyone's own unique situation.
Exactly.
And
yes.
I've worked with, startup companies. Do you want to sell them composable? Look, they don't have the time. They don't have the resources to work with something that just takes a lot of time. It offers a lot of flexibility, but we need to be real about this. And that's the real thing that always ticked me off with these discussions online. Even Michael Katz poking fun with compostability. I was like, come on, but let's stay friendly. Like you said, it's a small world. Yeah. And I challenged him on that. And because I thought he made he made a mistake saying, no, that's what he calls it, compostability. But it's, and I've seen it work, and it does wonders if your organization, if your architecture can work with it, but not every organization can.
And I think
so a hybrid. But how do you see Treasure Data compared to some of the, let's not label it packaged or composable, but just kind of CDPs in general. What makes Treasure Data in your eyes unique? Because I know that I was in a conversation with a potential buyer or somebody who was in the market for a CDP, and he watched one of the, he was watching the episode with Kazuki on the podcast, and he said, I was really interested. And this guy, the platform he was describing was really exciting. But as soon as he mentioned that the average contract was $500,000 a year, he said, that's when I stopped watching, because I was like, that's out of my market. But in your opinion, other than price, what makes Treasure Data so unique?
So maybe I'll get a little nerdy.
Oh, please do. Let's go.
One of the things I think they're doing really well, and I was very passionate about this at MetaRouter too, is identity stitching. People will use different words synonymously, identity resolution, whatever. But so they're calling it a diamond record. And what they do, I think, different than other CDPs is they have real time and bash. So there's customers that look back 50 plus years of data and bring this stuff together. Yeah. But the way that they do that stitching for that diamond record profile is so powerful, because in my head, I'm like, okay, you think anything you're doing with that profile, like we've talked about, customer 360 and whatever, but if you can truly get that diamond record correct, previously you've heard things like golden records, things like that view of a customer can do so much with AI, with any other way that you do it. And I think from a true identity stitching technology that they are just absolutely crushing it. And again, in my head, you think back to foundations, there's so much good you can do with having that right. So that's one thing, because again, everywhere else that diamond record touches, I think will be really strong. Of course, their vision of AI and how that's integrated into the tools. So they call it the AI Agent Foundry. I'm learning about it, but they're kind of doing a twofold approach where they're creating agents to do certain tasks. So an agent for audiences and an agent for potentially customer service, right? Things like that are kind of pre-built. But you're doing, and I'm trying to explore the same thing. We can chat about maybe pro tips, but how do you then build agents to do some of that other stuff that's maybe specific to you within that, using that customer data, using that diamond record. So I think generally in Martech, kind of where my head's at is the person with the best customer record, the best customer information will win, regardless of what they're kind of layering on top, whether they have an agentic layer, they're digging into contextual learning, whatever that might be, is really strong. So knowing that the foundational technology of treasure data is so strong that they can work with huge enterprise companies at that level is really cool. Maybe I'm a sucker for like enterprise tools. I don't know.
Maybe they go to the better events at Las Vegas. Let's go.
I never need to go back to Vegas. I don't ever. I will.
You will. Yeah, I have to now.
No, I have to. That's fine. I'll survive.
No, but it is true. I mean, I spoke to a composable solution for the identity stitching called Teloris, and if I remember correctly, I'm really going to mess this one up. I think they're in Germany or Switzerland, one of the two, I believe. But you're right. The topic you discuss around these enterprise companies, some having databases going back, 30, 40 years in all types of shapes and sizes, and I don't know where they're located even. Being able to extract data from that and stitch that together, that is a true demanding challenge. And that might be the part where treasure data is really scoring it, because if you look at some of the smaller CDPs, they'll be able to connect with a Snowflake or connect with a GCP or an Azure where some of your data might reside. But some of these legacy systems, and this company I just mentioned, they one of their clients I think was the German telecom industry, and that went back. I think they had records going back 50, 60 years, and they have now been able to stitch that all together. Using retrieval augmented generation, so RAGs, right? It's so amazing to see. So I need to plug them here. Sorry, but yeah. But Kazuki also mentioned, when you mentioned AI and what they're doing well in there, is that we did get into the topic of birth rates in Japan, for instance. He had an example that they're only dropping. South Korea is the same thing. Who's going to take over the jobs? Because the people who are still be around need to be serviced at banks and at insurance companies, at wherever. And he really made a strong case around, this is where you could build out these AI agents. And as long as you have all that data accessible, and that's one thing I'm curious about. You probably tell me in about a year, the accessibility, how treasure data is able to access so many different types of data. And from different sources, different systems, and bring that all together. I think treasure data is definitely going to be a key player there for a long time to come.
I think so. Here's kind of a fun story, just because I was with some of the team this week in New York. There was one story around a customer that does like the lottery, right? Like a lottery company, whatever.
The Powerball.
I don't think, of course. I don't know. I have my moments, but they were looking at like potentially a subscription model, right? Where there's people that buy a lottery ticket every single day, and that's just part of their routine, and that's how they start their day. And so they were looking at, our younger audience is more open to subscriptions to like a lottery system because they're used to subscriptions, right? You have your Netflix and your streaming and whatever. What they found, and I don't know if this was like the AI agents figuring out this audience or, just within the CDP, I'm not sure. But what they found was that people over 40, I guess, were more open to a subscription for lottery tickets than the younger demographics. In my head, I'm like, that's kind of shocking to me. My mom won't even set up like an Amazon, refill, like an auto refill. Like she doesn't want to even deal with that. But then you find an audience, the over 40s, that are willing to pay a subscription for daily lottery tickets. I'm like, it's just little things like that. It's like, how do you uncover those blind spots with the data that you have that you didn't know? And there were just really cool stories from the CS team about, again, things they didn't know or things that they thought were going to work that didn't. And I guess from my agency days and working at like retail companies, for example, it's shocking how those little tweaks or those little realizations can make such a difference. Like when I was working in retail, Black Friday, of course, is like the makeup industry. They realized that BOGO, buy one, get one, was way more popular, I guess, than like a percentage off. And BOGO actually saved them a ton of money just because of the way that the pricing and the, whatever worked. And so it's like, again, these little tweaks, when you uncover that blind spot, can make such a difference in the business. And that's cool to see. Real strategic things happening around.
And I'd love to see the reasoning behind that, though. I think you can actually tell AI to also push out the reasoning behind certain responses. But coming back to the question around, CS, their eyes opening and being amazed, do you think is AI kind of a threat for marketeers? Is what I've been telling my kids now. I mean, they're going to school, and I'm like, well, AI. I want you to learn how to use AI. I don't want you to abuse AI. I want you to learn how to use it, and making sure that you help it for research. You make it help you with your writing. You don't let it take over your life. But I think there needs to be a balance, and not necessary to get potentially better grades at school, but I think later when they do enter the workforce, I think it's going to be kind of a ticket to maybe the front of a line. I'm not sure which line, but having these skills are definitely going to be critical. And they're like you mentioned around the marketers and the ideas that AI is bringing now. I am expecting a lot of people to kind of be pushing back. There's a lot of gut feeling marketers out there in the world who have reinforced their position based on track records. And now all of a sudden there's this computer thing telling them to do their job differently. I mean, have you witnessed anything like that, or resistance, or what's your own opinion about that?
Yeah, I would say what I've seen more is like cautious optimism. Of course, with
Nicely
any
put.
change, there's change is scary, right? The unknown, whatever. For me, personally, I don't think it's replacing any jobs. I think it will if you don't figure out how to use it to your advantage. If you can't figure out how to use AI to make you more strategic or more, stronger in your job, that I think is where
10 others will. Yeah.
exactly. So to tell your kids like, hey, like learn this, use it with any technology. My parents still type on their phone like this. Or one of my favorite videos is like comparing Gen Z with millennials, and they're like, show me how you would take a picture, and I'm going like this and my cousins are going like this, and I'm like, exactly, there's like this technological mind shift, and so you have to be like in on this.
What is he trying to tell me? What is he trying to tell me? That I need to put my mic on for online gaming? I don't know.
Yeah. Pick up the phone and you're like this, and your kids are, like, it's just a funny.
You want me to go on my phone? I want you to go to sleep.
Right. I mean, it's just that, like, we're in that shift.
That's funny. Yeah.
I think we all have to get in that mindset of like, make AI your superpower once you can figure out how to use it. Building an agent. I think I've worked with so many people that are so afraid to like dig into it just to try. I'm like, okay, well, here's what I'm not saying I'm like the expert. I'm an enthusiast. I will learn it because I think it's really cool and really fun. And I want it to, at MetaRouter, it was just me and product marketing. I had to do these things to like, do good work. I needed that extra help to get stuff done. So to your point,
and it worked. I mean, look where you're at now.
I mean, luck, whatever, fate, you name it. But it's certainly to learn it, to figure out, to help others learn it as well has been really become a passion of mine. So I don't know. It's cool. I'm more excited for the future than I am fearful of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's definitely clear in the messages you share on LinkedIn. Like I said, you've been very open and you have a vibrant voice on the dusty LinkedIn image, the website. And it's always great to see your comments and your posts fly by. And I just want to say, hey, thanks for joining me here today. Like I said, it's been a long time coming, and it's good that we finally found some time to sit down and pick each other's brain, or me pick your brain. And I'm super happy for you that you're moving to the Treasure Data team, and I wish you all the best there. Seriously.
Thank you. Well, you equally make me excited. All of your comments are witty, they're fun, they're intelligent. You talk to some of the coolest people, and I think that just helps make the industry better with the knowledge that you're sharing and how you're talking about it. But
thank you, yourself included.
We're in this together. This is why we work in tech. We got to make it better. So I love it.
Definitely, and it's a small world, so let's make it fun.
Yes, exactly. Amen to that.
I'll see you around on LinkedIn then.
Yeah, right. I'll be there. Thanks.
Bye, Michelle.
Bye.